they do have the ability to make one major strike, which would upset things politically. Although for the Iranians, it wouldn't stop their nuclear program. It would mean that American public opinion might, very much the Europeans, would blame the Israelis for causing a economic catastrophe, a recession, or even a depression. But do the Israelis care? The Israelis have been wagging the dog of the United States for a very long time. They've even attacked a United States ship, the USS Liberty, during the Six-Day War, maybe deliberately, which led to the 35 sailors being killed, US sailors being killed. And yet America has done nothing to any military action. It didn't do any military action against the Israelis for that. The Israelis have also threatened during their invasion of Lebanon, against their war against Hezbollah, threatened French and NATO frigates. But there is even wider implications than that. As the Romans and Greeks knew, Iran was the gateway to India and China, and also Pakistan if you're taking an overland route. And also Turkey is an important strategic asset of NATO, because Turkey is perhaps the only country with both the ambition and the actual power, a reasonable plan to, because they can achieve it, to bring peace to the Middle East, because the Israelis fear the Turkish power, their army, their growing economic power, and the Syrians, who were once a close ally of the ruling party in Turkey, which has become a modestly Islamic party on the lines of the Libyan NTC. The Turks are already talking about imposing a military zone within northern Syria to protect civilians. But no one really has an appetite for invading Syria. It's too complex, and the only wild card here is Benjamin Netanyahu. Will he actually inflame the situation with his flawed personality, and knowing that he's the public angst of Sarkozy, who said Netanyahu is a liar, you cannot trust anything he says, he backstabs everyone. And Obama replying, you think you're sick of him, I have to deal with him every day. So Likud is not popular in Europe or in America. But with the growing tensions there, you also have the problem of both a Pakistan allied to a nuclear armed Pakistan allied to Saudi Arabia, and a nuclear armed India allied to Israel. They both have, for the Iranians, this is a very, very tight position. As Ahmadinejad said, quite logically, why would it make sense for us to have two nuclear weapons when the West, and not including India or Israel, has 22,000? It doesn't make any sense. But everyone is trying to use others as proxies. But the problem is Iran and Syria themselves are proxies of Russia and China. And China itself is building a blue water fleet which will eventually be bigger than the United States Navy. Why is it building this? It's building it because they're trying to protect themselves, as Stratfor said, from the American ability to cut off the supply of materials to China, and also the exports of China to other countries, to blockade their ports with the Pacific and Indian Ocean battle groups. If there was a strike against Iran by Israel, this would not only inflame the situation, it would make it very, very complicated for the United States, because as the United States is trying to withdraw its troops from Afghanistan in 2014, and it is removing the last few thousand of its troops in Iraq, much to the glee of Muqtada al-Sadr, a Shiite cleric allied to Iran and allied to Maliki, the leader of Iraq, it will seem like the United States has been kicked out by Muqtada al-Sadr's army, basically. The other most complicated thing would be is if Iran mine the Straits of Hormuz. Qatar, which is supplying the weapons to the Syrian Free Army, which I spoke about at the beginning, is also playing a very dangerous game, because it is both allied to Iran and it has allied to the Americans, who have their largest forward deployed fleet there, the Fifth Fleet, which is in the Persian Gulf. The Iranians also have the ability to have plausible deniability about their attack, because they have Iranian Revolutionary Guards who are being trained for suicide missions against American assets and tankers in the Gulf. And Qatar has done military operations with both the Iranians and the Americans in wargame exercises, so it's hedging its bets. Qatar is also neighbouring Saudi Arabia, so there is also the implications for the Qatari family against the Saudi royal family, the crime family of Saudi Arabia. So it is a complicated situation. Would the Saudis, if there was a heightening intentions, could there be any more when Iran has tried to kill their ambassador to the United States for use of what they thought were Colombian and Mexican drug cartels, but they were actually FBI agents, and the diplomat from Iran was caught with weapons and explosives that was going to carry out the attack. The Iranians didn't seem any bothered about killing American civilians in this, of course, because the Americans have killed their civilians when an Iranian airliner during the 1990s was shot down when it was mistakenly identified by the Aegis system on the US Trafalgar, I believe, a US cruiser, to be a threat, and a missile was deployed against that plane, killing everyone on board. The problem for the Americans is if the oil tankers are hit, then they will become under pressure from the Western crime families and also the legitimate political establishment within the demos of the government and the elected government and business interests, because every time an oil tanker is attacked, be it full of $1 billion worth of oil, including the oil inside the tanker, that has to be insured for $1 billion. So they're actually losing $2 billion, and the ecological disaster that would cause would also affect public opinion in the United States and in Europe. Europe especially has a lot to be worried about when Likud, affiliates of Likud in Israel, are threatening Europe with Jericho missiles, nuclear missiles, which have arranged to cover all of Europe, and Iran is doing the same thing in its media. All the sides are blaming the other, and there doesn't seem to be any way, apart from the use of Turkey, which is a member of NATO, to protect peace in the Middle East. If Russia is brought on board, it would have a calming effect on the Syrian Vortex. It would then simply be a Syrian issue for the Syrian people to solve, although albeit through a civil war now. That is probably the least dangerous way to go.